So, the Warrior Cats Prophecies Begin graphic novel trilogy is officially complete, with Volume 3 just releasing. And while each volume is advertised as a combination of two books, what ended up happening is that Into the Wild, Forest of Secrets, and The Darkest Hour ended up taking most of the focus and the limited amount of pages each volume had to work with, each being closer to 2/3 of their respective books, leaving Fire and Ice, Rising Storm, and A Dangerous Path's plots to be more rushed through. Which of the 6 are the less important books overall? So it made sense. For the first volume I made 2 videos describing how each book was adapted, and of the remaining 4 books, I would say The Darkest Hour is the most interesting one to look at, so that will be the topic of today's video, and the others I'll go back for if there's demand for it. So let's get into The Darkest Hour's chapters, and see which major plot events were kept, changed, moved, or removed. We're mainly looking at the big picture, so a lot of minor details won't be covered. And for full transparency, I am using the Warriors Wiki Cliff Notes to help me categorize most of the major events from the original book, so credit to them. I got 4 colors that I'm working with. Black text for the same, blue for changes, green for when events are removed, and gray for moved, meaning it's the same event but placed at a different spot on the timeline. And if something is both changed and moved, it will just be blue for changed. We got a prologue and 30 chapters to work with, so let's waste no more time. The prologue is the same, but it is moved to before the events of A Dangerous Path in the comic. But the important part of Tigerstar meeting with Scourge is there. Chapter 1 is changed. There's a brand new Tigerstar's perspective scene, where Darkstripe describes his failed attempt to take Bramblepaw and Tawnypaw to ShadowClan. In the original book, Firestar catches and stops Darkstripe, but here apparently Bramble and Tawny were just too annoying for his plan to work. Later, Lostface is very adamant about wanting to fight, whereas in the original book she was more, I guess I can listen and scent. Of course in the original book Brightheart eventually comes around, but it just starts much earlier here. Chapter 2 I would say is mostly the same. Bluestar's Vigil, Stonefur and Mistyfoot being Bluestar's kits revealed to ThunderClan, and Darkstripe protesting Firestar's leader are all here. A scene where Stonefur and Mistyfoot are physically present for Bluestar's Vigil is skipped over, but it's implied to have happened. Chapter 3 is the same. Firestar goes to Cinderpelt to the Moonstone and meets some WindClan cats along the way. Chapter 4, also the same. Firestar gets 9 lives, and then gets the 4 will become 2 prophecy. The lives aren't painful like they are in the original book, but that's just because of limited pages in the comic. Chapter 5 is removed. Firestar has a discussion with Cinderpelt about how he gets prophecies in the original book, and they visit Barley's farm, but not in the graphic novel. Cinderpelt kind of got the short end of the stick when it comes to which characters got focus in Volume 3. Chapter 6 has a little removed, and a little the same. We lose a conversation between Firestar and Sandstorm about their relationship, and Firestar getting Spotted Leaf's advice that he doesn't need her advice for his deputy decision, but we still have Graystripe telling Firestar he doesn't have to pick him, and then Firestar appointing Whitestorm. Chapter 7 is changed. In the book, Firestar goes to Two Leg Place and gets stalked by Bramblepaw, and then they reflect on how they both have reasons to mistrust each other and have to prove themselves, Firestar being a former kitty pet, and Bramblepaw having an evil father. But in the comic, they are just training regularly, and don't draw the parallel, instead focusing the conversation on Tigerstar and how Bramblepaw denounces his actions. No calling Firestar out here. The part of the conversation that stays the same is Bramblepaw saying Tawnypaw is complicated. It seems the comic is more focused on catching the reader up to speed on who Tigerstar is, rather than calling Firestar out for his bias. It takes a little character complexity away in exchange for not confusing the reader with too many plot points. Chapter 8 is changed. Graystripe saves Sorrel-Kit from Darkstripe's deathberry feeding in the book, but now it's Cloudtail. Whoa, why? Well, it has to do with the fact that a scene from A Dangerous Path is shoved into the Darkest Hour section of the book, where Firestar, Brightheart, and Cloudtail meet Princess. It's repurposed to also foreshadow BloodClan, and because of this scene placement, they switch Graystripe for Cloudtail in order to make it more of a smooth transition. Chapter 9 is a little removed, a little just moved. ThunderClan all reacting to the Darkstripe situation is gone. Lostface's naming ceremony to become Brightheart is moved to earlier in the story to coincide with Whitestorm's deputy ceremony. Firestar getting advice from One Eye about Lostface's name is removed. Thornpaw doesn't go on patrol with Firestar, meaning his life is in shambles in the comic universe. Poor guy. However, he does at least get to become Thornclaw, moved to the same point in time as Brightheart's ceremony. Chapter 10, we get most of the same, a little removed. Sorrelkit spilling the Darkstripe truth and Darkstripe's banishment are present, but Firmpaw being reassigned the Longtail as a mentor is removed. Also, there is a change here that's not related to any chapter in particular. Blackfoot's warrior name is now Blackstep. There's no official statement why, but the conclusion the fandom has come to is that because Blackfoot is a name used by indigenous people, removing the name was done for cultural sensitivity. Which, if that is the reason, I totally respect it. Moving on to chapter 11. Things are going to start getting really messy here. So there are changes to a Mistyfoot conversation because in the book, it's about TigerClan, but in the comic, TigerClan was already revealed at this point, so it's kinda just about nothing really. Then all the pre-gathering talking is removed. Chapter 12, The Gathering. So, there are 2 gatherings in the book, in chapter 12 and 21, but only one in the comic where every major event from both gatherings happen at the same time. So, bear with me. Looking at only the chapter 12 events, the important things are included. Tigerstar formally announces River and ShadowClan have become TigerClan and invites WindClan and ThunderClan to join, who both refuse. Although in the comic we already know TigerClan at this point, and the announcement is a little redundant. In the original book, a storm causes the gathering to end, and that's removed because in the comic, it immediately jumps to chapter 21. But for now, back to the original book. Chapter 13, a little bit of moving, a little bit of removing. Reactions to the gathering, gone. Firestar and Bramblepaw training, and Bramblepaw wondering why TigerClan is bad, gone. Cloudtail showing Brightheart new fighting moves is moved all the way back to a warrior ceremony, with a couple of quick sketches in this comic. Firestar seeing the reflection of a lion in the water is moved to later in the comic before the BloodClan battle. And Spottly's prophecy of taking heed is removed. Chapter 14, changes and removals, and a little of the same. So Tawnypaw's whole character arc is present, but delivered a little differently. In the book, she gets upset recalling a mishap where Small-Ear compares her to Tigerclaw because she was late to helping the elders, but in the comic this scene happens in the present and is not a second-hand account. And it also happens after Sorrelkit eats deathberries. And there is a completely new Tawnypaw and Bramblepaw scene where she talks with Bramblepaw, which obviously didn't happen in the original book because it's locked to Firestar's POV. And this scene is before Sorrelkit wakes up. Ravenpaw showing up in ThunderClan to pay respects to Bluestar is just gone. And then Firestar, Graystripe, and Ravenpaw sneaking off to RiverClan territory. Whoa boy, where do I begin? Ravenpaw of course is not there. And get this, Firestar is not there either. This critically important section of the book is turned into a flashback that only Graystripe was there for, and it's put in between Sorrelkit eating deathberries and waking up. The Bonehill is there, half-clan prisoners are there, the half-clan hatred just materializes out of nowhere, but it's there. Then we cut into chapter 15, which is the same, with the story of Stonefur being killed after refusing to hurt Graystripe's kits. But of course it's also different because it's Graystripe's flashback, and he was the only spy. Chapter 16 is removed and changed because there is no Ravenpaw to trick Jaggedtooth, and instead it's said that Graystripe managed to save all 3 cats on his own. Graystripe's really overpowered now. Chapter 17 is changed and moved. It's a similar scene with the rescued cats running from TigerClan, but Firestar is on the ThunderClan patrol side instead of the rescue patrol, and of course Ravenpaw is not there. And what's moved is that Tawnypelt going poof was instead before the gathering and not here. Chapter 18 is just gone. They didn't look for Tawnypelt because in the comic they just find her at the gathering immediately. Ravenpaw leaving can't happen because he wasn't in ThunderClan to begin with. Mistyfoot, Featherpaw, and Stormpaw coming to ThunderClan is implied in the comic, but I'm gonna say it's removed because they don't really do anything there. And Mudclaw arriving because of a TigerClan attack simply doesn't happen. TigerClan never leaves their own territory in the comic. Chapter 19, removed, with one big change. The arrival at the aftermath of a TigerClan WindClan battle where Gorsepaw dies. That doesn't happen in the comic. But oh Gorsepaw, don't think for a second you can cheat death just because your big scene was removed. Because he dies at the BloodClan battle instead. It's a canon event. He dies in every universe. Chapter 20 is moved. It's Firestar and Sandstorm shipping leading up to the TigerClan gathering, but in the comic it happens before the BloodClan battle instead. Chapter 21, We are at the second gathering of the book, and the second half of the only gathering in the comic. Tigerstar asking them to join TigerClan again is obviously removed because no time has passed since the first invite in the comic. Them seeing Tawnypaw at the gathering and her revealing that she wanted it, Bramblepaw refusing to follow, that's the same. And BloodClan appearing? Obviously, the same. Chapter 22, mostly the same, with one key change. The major events of Tigerstar introducing BloodClan, ordering BloodClan to attack, Scourge refusing that order, Firestar explaining Tigerstar's crimes, Tigerstar attacking Scourge and Scourge killing him, and Scourge making his ultimatum, all present. But the big change is that in the Darkest Hour, Tigerstar orders BloodClan to attack right away, and Scourge refusing is what exposes Tigerstar's weakness, giving Firestar the idea to turn Scourge against Tigerstar. Whereas in the comic, Firestar launches into his spiel on Tigerstar before Tigerstar makes the order, which makes zero sense because if Tigerstar still had the confidence that BloodClan would fight for him, he would have no reason not to interrupt Firestar's yapping and attempt to launch the attack. Just goes to show how you can unintentionally ruin a scene by shifting one small thing you didn't realize was super important. Chapter 23 is the fallout of Tigerstar's death, all removed, including both Firestar and Bramblepaw being weirdly sad in spite of how evil he was, and some plans for the BloodClan battle, such as WindClan joining an alliance with ThunderClan. Chapter 24 has some of the same, and then a very deliberate change. Ravenpaw and Barley still show up and explain Barley's past with BloodClan. There are some removed things with Longtail reporting on BloodClan, Firestar promising to give Sandstorm Sorrel Kit, Firestar and Cloudtail warning Princess about BloodClan. And the change is this. In the book, Barley says BloodClan's weakness is that they don't believe in StarClan. In the comic, it's that they don't believe in the Warrior Code. Subtle, but major. Literally speaking, I think saying StarClan was more accurate because magic revive powers are the reason Firestar beat Scourge in the end, but metaphorically speaking, maybe the writers didn't want to imply that BloodClan was evil only because they lacked a religion. But that's not to say that the original book implied that. The Darkest Tower has a whole scene where Bluestar explains that StarClan was not an all-powerful god force. You know, the conclusion to her character arc, where she, after all that time of thinking StarClan hated her, realizes StarClan actually had no say, and that the clans deserve to live their lives without the fear of being controlled by a higher power. But whoops, the comic didn't have that scene. It's only one of the biggest reveals in all of Warrior Cat's lore, but whatever. That scene was in Chapter 25, by the way. And a different scene from Chapter 25, with Whitestorm having doubts that the BloodClan battle has too high of a price, is present. Chapter 26 is about them gathering the other clans to join the cause of fighting BloodClan. A visit to WindClan is completely added in, because in the original book they joined right after Tigerstar died, but here Firestar has to visit WindClan camp. Getting ShadowClan and RiverClan to join the alliance is the same, but Leopardstar asking Firestar to lead her clan into battle is gone, even though that was a massive moment in her character arc, showing humility in the face of the consequences of her mistakes. But yeah, whatever, forget that I guess. Also, Darkstripe is here. Tawnypaw explaining herself is present, but they show it with the initial conversation to Bramblepaw, where in the book it was her relaying the conversation to Firestar. And weirdly, Mistyfoot goes back to RiverClan in the comic, even though that doesn't happen until after the BloodClan battle in the book, and doing it earlier doesn't change the story at all. Chapter 27 is sort of there. Various preparation and discussion happens, but it's just a simple montage in the comic. No dialogue. Cinderpelt having Fernpaw as a helper is kept. Chapter 28 is all there. You can't just leave out the final battle. The BloodClan battle, Darkstripe attacking Firestar but dying to Greystripe, Bone killing Whitestorm, Greystripe becoming deputy, Apprentices killing Bone, Bramblepaw and Tawnypaw fighting together, Firestar fighting Scourge, and Firestar dying. Chapter 29, also there. Firestar visits StarClan while his body revives, and then he interrupts Scourge's battle with Cloudtail to kill Scourge. Chapter 30, you better believe it's all present. Mistyfoot becoming deputy, Blackstep becoming leader, and the general acknowledgement of the battle being over. So overall, The Darkest Hour is a book with a lot going on, and having to fit it into 167 comic pages seems to have made everything collapse in on itself. Combining the two gatherings led to a really confusing sequence of events, and turning the Tiger Clan infiltration and rescue, the longest plot event of the book, into a quick flashback, while also taking away the reunion of the original trio, is certainly a choice. There's insistence on emphasizing the Tawnypaw conflict, perhaps necessary to set the stage for the new Prophecy adaptation, but then it doesn't emphasize Bramblepaw as much, leaving out a key scene where Bramblepaw calls out Firestar for not trusting him. And the big reveal that StarClan is not all powerful is gone, something so important to the lore of the entire franchise. If someone who only reads the comics wants to get into a Warrior Cats discussion with someone who reads all the books, it's gonna get messy. And I know it's a little late now, but I really think it would have been smarter to just have one book per comic instead of two. The new Prophecy will probably stand a better chance as those books have a little more filler, but we'll have to wait and see. Alright, bye everyone!